Hello and welcome to our second episode of Dear Soul Auntie. We're so excited to have you here. My name is Zainab and my lovely co-host Lisa. Do you want on this episode, we're going to be talking about the voice in my head or your head. What is this voice that talks to us? Why does it, how does it impact us and impact our lives? And we're going to discuss how to become aware of it, and actually why do we need to become aware of it. So I'm really excited that you're here, and yeah, let's get started. Okay, so what is the voice in our head? So the voice in the head is that a voice that talks to us. So for me, when I first begun this spiritual journey, the first thing I noticed after reading Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now was that there was actually a voice that talks to me, and that voice wasn't me. And that was, I think for me, it was revolutionary to become aware of this voice. And the voice constantly, it tells us off, it tells us we're doing things wrong, it projects us into the future, it dwells on the past. It says, it's that voice that, you've had an argument with someone, for example, and you come home and then the voice like, you should have said this and you should have, like, oh, you could have done this. You play it back in your head, or sometimes have imaginary scenarios in your head. And what this means is that when we are in listening to this voice, and sometimes it's a monologue, sometimes it's two voices, and you're like, I should have said this. Why didn't you do that? Blah, blah, blah. It can be two. And while we're doing that, we're not being present. And the problem with this voice is not only is it this voice that's going off in my head, but actually it has a physical causes a physical reaction in the body. So it causes the sympathetic nervous system to become activated, which is the system that regulates fight or flight, and causes the cortisol levels to go up. And being constantly in fight or flight is not good for us, and that's why we get anxiety and stress. So this is so important that we become aware of this voice in our head that's constantly talking to us, and then learn how to be aware of it, but also how to watch the voice, become the watcher. And I don't want to go too far in, so keep it, at least you have to help keep me because I get really, this topic is my favorite topic, so I get a bit, so do you want to add anything to that, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I think my first understanding of voice in the head began many years ago, probably from I would say from the age of around 16, 17.
Wow.
Yeah, because I actually, we all have this voice in our head.
Yes.
And I think it depends it's your subconscious, basically. It's your subconscious mind regurgitating
Yes.
past things that have happened to you, memories, thoughts, things from childhood. So when I first became aware of the voice in the head, I actually thought I was going crazy. I actually thought I was mad, and I was the only person who had this voice in my head, because
Right.
as soon as you become quiet, or you're kind of in yourself,
Yes.
suddenly this voice this voice starts saying certain things,
Sure.
and
Sure.
if you depending on your own belief systems, and your things that have happened to you, or memories and stuff like that. I think it all depends on that. And so it's your
Yeah.
subconscious basically communicating with your conscious mind, because you're conscious, obviously. But there's that sort of in between state where suddenly you're not focusing on anything, and suddenly this subconscious mind starts chattering and saying certain things. Like you say, you might have had an argument or a conversation or something during the day, and after that event, suddenly your subconscious mind is saying, why didn't you say this? Why
Yes.
didn't you do that? And you could have been much better at that. Gosh, you could have spoken a lot louder. Or
Yeah.
and it's all these, it's most of the time with most people, it's a negative
It is
voice.
absolutely, absolutely,
It's a
absolutely.
negative voice because it's feeding, or it's regurgitating your own belief. if you're not confident, if you don't feel confident in speaking openly to the public, just for example, let's say, and you do that for your, for your job
Job.
or for your
Mm.
work or whatever, what you find is, you do that, you speak in front of people, and then as soon as you're finished, your subconscious mind jumps in and starts saying, "Oh no, he didn't talk loud enough. Oh no, he was," and it's your own subconscious mind regurgitating your beliefs.
Sure. And it's from
You know,
conditioning, and it's
yeah,
from
it's conditioning. It is
our conditioning,
conditioning.
from our, because we're all just a bundle of conditioning from our childhoods,
Exactly,
from what
exactly.
our parents said, from what the teachers said. And if you grew up and you were overwhelmingly told you were not good enough, like most of
Mm,
us were,
mm, mm, mm.
then that voice is constantly telling you you're not good enough.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's not always. I want to distinguish between that negative voice in the head and, you know, intuition,
Oh yeah. No,
because
it's a whole different thing.
that's,
Yes.
but then
Yes.
at the same time, sometimes, I've heard people say, or question, how do you distinguish between, the voice in the head, which is saying these
It's a good,
negative things, and your
good question.
intuition?
Mm.
Just something to sort of ponder on. Then we can
That's
discuss that
really, it's a
later
good
on.
question. That's a really good question. I think
Yeah.
personally for myself, I had no access to my intuition until the voice quietened. It's not
Mm,
only, and
mm.
once the voice, which used to be my inner personal tormentor,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and that's why I couldn't, I didn't ever like to be alone. I didn't want silence because I just couldn't cope with myself. Um,
yeah,
and it's not till I've gone on this healing journey and the voices have it it's quietened, that I can actually have access to my intuition, because we all have intuition. We all have it there, but it's just once you become quiet enough to hear the intuition, that guidance, the inner quiet knowing. But normally we can't hear it because the voice in the head is so loud.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And I think, as you start to look a lot more involved in like meditation and,
Yeah.
being able to, drop into your heart and being able to sort of go
Yes.
into that
Yes.
quiet mode.
Yeah.
Once you get into that practice, shall we
Yeah.
say, for
Yeah.
yourself, then yes, the intuition is much louder. And I
Yeah.
think that is key actually in that,
That is key.
on the healing journey and on your journey through life, you will um, experience a lot of people. Everyone, I believe, has this voice in the head. Sometimes more positive, sometimes more negative,
Correct.
depending on your own subconscious and your own beliefs and what you decide to believe about yourself. That's really key as well. If you actually feed into the negative voice and believe what it's saying, then it becomes more powerful.
Sure.
Whereas as you probably go on to discuss throughout the show is, if you become the watcher of that voice, and then you can sort of say, well, no, that's not actually true.
Yes,
I'm not going to
that's right.
believe that.
Yeah. 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 Yes.
It starts to
Yeah.
quieten down. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
And
that's
just
very
Lisa, just
important.
what you said about the heart, that's also really important with the intuition and the voice in the head, is that one is from the heart and one is from the mind. So that
Mm,
is definitely,
mm.
the intuition is heart centered, and when you're able to go into your heart. Um so yeah, so moving on, how does the voice impact us? Like how does this voice impact us day to day? And for most of us, it means that we are not present. So, for example, let's say you're on the train going to work in the morning, or the bus or whatever, or even in your car driving. And often in experiences where you don't need too much conscious thought. So you things that you can do automatically, like driving, like showering, like doing the washing up. You're physically, your body may physically be doing the said activity, but your mind is having this chat with, your mind is chatting, and you're therefore either dwelling or thinking about something in the past, which is for the most part causing you stress, or you're projecting yourself into the future and you're worrying about something in the future, so you're not present. So you think the whole drive, then suddenly you're at work. You don't really remember the drive because you weren't there for it. You were physically there for the drive, but you weren't there for the drive mentally. So it causes anxiety, it causes stress, it causes fear. And often, people don't know why they're anxious. There might be like a general background anxiety that we often have, that we don't necessarily know what causes this anxiety. And this anxiety is caused by the voice in the head. And when you become aware that the voice is talking to you, then you're able to step back and look and know that actually, I've got a little bit of anxiety, and it's because of this thought. I'll give you an example. Last year I was in Venice with a friend of mine, and this friend is, we've known each other a really long time, and she's always been like, she's really glamorous, and she does everything right in my mind. Anyway, that's what my mind tells me. And I just packed taken only hand luggage, so I packed all my dresses into a small backpack, so everything was a bit squished and crumpled. So I was going to iron the dress for the day that I was going to use that day, and then I just had the thought, oh, shall I iron today's dress, or shall I iron all the dresses in the bag? Then I thought, oh, actually, I bet Rhoda would have ironed all the dresses. Then there was a cascade of, well, you're not as good as Rhoda. Well, you're not. And
Mm,
this whole
mm,
thing in front of my eyes, there was like a cascade of, you're not good enough, basically, was the end result. But I was able to actually see it unfolding, because I've gotten quite good at watching my thoughts. I saw the simple question of, should I iron this one dress, lead to, you're not good enough. And it was just wild to actually watch that happen. And because I'm
mm.
aware of it now, it didn't lead to the anxiety that it could have led to had I not been aware of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, absolutely. It does make a lot of sense because I think it is the awareness,
Yes, it's so
having
important.
the awareness, and not letting your mind basically take control. There's the saying that says, "Don't believe your mind, what your mind is telling you. Believe what your heart is telling you." Your mind is trying to, and the thing is, it's not as if, is always a bad thing. So a lot of the time, this voice, this ego, or this subconscious is your subconscious mind is trying to protect you.
Absolutely. Yes,
You know,
yes,
and
yes.
obviously there's times when we need that protection, like you
Sure.
said, the flight or flight, and that's perfectly fine. That it is sometimes that guidance that we
Mm.
need,
Yeah,
to keep us safe and all of that. So that's fine. But when you start to analyze that voice, you start to differentiate between, is it something that's just, this is just a natural part of my emotions that's happening because of the environment that I'm currently in? I'm feeling scared because I'm about to go up on stage and in front of thousands of people, or even just have an interview, or, all of those kind of um, fear-based emotions and thoughts are perfectly normal because we're human and we're supposed to feel these things, and it's a way of us understanding that yes, we're human, we're bound to feel anxious, we're bound to feel in certain instances in the present moment. But the
sure.
minute you start having this constantly going back to events that happened to you, yesterday or last year or 10 years ago, whatever, that's when hang on a second, I'm not actually in the present moment right now. I'm,
No,
I'm
no.
looking, I'm focusing on a future event that hasn't even happened yet, or something that's already happened and I have absolutely no control over it anymore. It's gone, it's happened. So it's always good to come back to the present. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that in there, that we have to, like you say, we have to learn to differentiate between, what that voice is actually there for. Is it in the present moment where it's trying to help you to sort of
Yeah.
calm you or whatever,
Hmm.
or is it
Hmm.
dragging you back to the past or focusing on something that hasn't even happened?
Yes, that's
Um,
really, really important, Lisa, because it's really important that you made that distinction, because you're right. fear is important. Fight or flight is important because if we sometimes do need to fight and sometimes we do need to fight. And
Mm,
it's a bit like cell replicate. You know how cells replicate. That's how cell replication is normal, and we need it to live. But sometimes it replicates in a bad way and we get cancer. It's a bit like that. So
mm,
we need to
mm.
think. Thinking is good. Thinking is important. We need to think. However,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
are
I
we
mean,
being
yeah, I
used? But
mean,
yeah, has it become a problem? Yeah, so it's not that all thinking is a problem. Thinking is not a
no.
problem. When you're thinking and you're present, that's fine, that's great. It's just when it
Mm,
becomes pathological. So yeah, I guess what we're
mm,
talking about is pathological thinking about the past and the future constantly, where you are missing out on your life, because this life, like
absolutely.
we only have today. So constantly, let's say for that train journey, we get on the train and we sit there and we're like, oh well, I need to get to work, I need to get to work. And you are constantly thinking about like what you've got to do at work, what have you got to do when you get home, blah 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 blah. But you're missing out on the train journey, which is your actual life. And then
Mm,
you're using the train journey or work or whatever as a means to an end. And actually, this is your life. We constantly thinking about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. We miss out on today, and today's all we have. So
mm, mm,
yeah, so what we're talking about really is when it becomes pathological, when it's a problem. And for most of us, well, personally for me, my living in the future and dwelling on the past was pathological, to the point where I was constantly anxious. I was constantly worried about things that hadn't happened, in my imagination, bad things that could happen in the future, and then dwelling and feeling bad about things that I hadn't done or could have done better or in the past. So really, it's a great distinction, because what we're talking about is when it becomes pathological.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Absolutely. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, how do we become aware? So we're talking about becoming aware, and it's not easy, you guys. So it's a practice. It's not there's no this is the tool and you're gonna do it, and it's a work in progress. And often when I ask people like, do you meditate, or about talking about being present, and everyone says, well, I don't know how to meditate. I don't know how to meditate. Nobody knows how to meditate. Nobody's mind is blank. Like, it's just not possible. But what we can do is just start. When I started baby steps. So things like when I was washing up in the morning, I would just notice the sponge in my hand and how the sponge felt in my hand, look at the suds of soap, and feel the water, notice the temperature of the water, just baby steps. Things like when I'm washing my hair, feeling the scalp, feeling the hair, feeling the water. What can I hear? Just using my senses to anchor myself in this present moment. And often I could probably only do that for like 30 seconds. And then my mind would wander off about tomorrow or next week or last week. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm being present. And then come back to now. And then my mind would wander off again. And just constant, it's okay. When it wanders off, bring it back to whatever task you're doing now. And then other examples are like when I'm walking down the road, for example, noticing the cracks on the pavement, when I'm walking up and down the steps, noticing my foot on each step, one step, two step, just super, super basic, and just doing it now. Because often I find that we think that we have to have like this big practice, we have to sit down and meditate for an hour. And if you've got time on the wheel to meditate for an hour, wonderful. But so for myself, and I think what's important is that we don't need to necessarily do it that way. We can just try to be here now in this present moment, and we don't need a big practice. It's just something really simple, like incorporating mindfulness or being present, or becoming aware of the voice in your head, doing it now and incorporating it into your day-to-day activities that you're already doing. So there's no special, you don't have to do a special practice, because sometimes that can become a barrier as to why we don't do it, because we don't have the time, we don't have the space to sit and meditate. We're busy, we live in small homes, whatever, for whatever reason. But it's something that you can do while you eat, while you listen to people, even actively listening. Often when we listen to people, our mind wanders. You're listening and you're like, oh yeah, what will I have for dinner? And then bring yourself back once you notice it. So just bringing it into your normal day-to-day activities.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as you know, I'm a yogi.
Yes, you are.
I practice yoga, and one of the things that I find really keeps me focused on the movements, and it's a major part of yoga anyway, is breath work. And it's, this is a centuries old practice, not just in yoga but in other forms, even in martial arts, and other forms of exercise as well. We always focus on the breath, and I think you can actually bring it away from yoga and bring that into just everyday life. And I do that regularly as well, where I find that maybe, I'm not as present as I should be. I bring it back to my breath, because a lot of all the time, I mean, breath is an automatic thing.
Yes, you've always got it with you.
Subconsciously, you're just breathing anyway.
Yes.
But most of the time, we are shallow breathing, We're not actually breathing, consciously breathing. The conscious breath is what will 100% bring you into the present. The automatic breathing that we're doing is just, obviously our lungs need oxygen, so we have to,
Sure.
we have to breathe. Yeah. But when we do conscious breath, it actually completely slows down the heartbeat, and the mind stops chattering, because you can't consciously breathe and, think at the same time.
No.
So that's another tool that I find really good, especially, if you're starting to feel anxious in any way, or you're starting to worry or think about things, hang on a second, let me take it back to my breath, take a deep breath. And a lot of the time, people are having anxiety attacks and things like that. People always say, come on, breathe, breathe. And obviously they were breathing before, but they were breathing rapidly, and, getting themselves, hyperventilating. Whereas when you bring it down, you slow down your breath, you actually consciously breathe. It's phenomenal, and it's actually very, very healing as well. I mean, this is a to me, I think this is breath work is a show on its own.
Of its own,
because,
probably more than one show. Yeah. But yeah,
It is
again,
a show on its own, because it can, it can bring you such peace as well. So it's very, very important. So that's what I wanted to sort of add in there about how do we become aware of it, and when we are aware of it, what can we do? So anytime, really, throughout your day, catch yourself and do some conscious breathing, because it will keep that connection to the source as well. Always bring you back to the source. Always bring you back to yourself. It's fantastic. So that's really important. And I also wanted to mention, there's an author called, or he was a YouTuber. He's actually passed away now. His name's Bob Proctor, and he.
yes.
I don't know if, you probably, I'm sure you've been aware of him, but he's very much into changing paradigms, the subconscious, and how we can actually use that subconscious mind to change our lives. Because it's the subconscious that really runs our life. It's that there's a bi-directional communication between the subconscious and the conscious, and he was the one who kind of sort of said you can change your paradigm in 21 days through focusing on changing your subconscious, and it's your subconscious that, provides you, actually regurgitates your beliefs and who you are and everything else. So if you can change that and turn around that negative voice, things that you want to change within your life, and focus for those 21 days. And I have actually tried it, and it does work. Something I just wanted to add on, because it is our subconscious mind that's regurgitating these things, to take control of that and to feed it new information, new thoughts, good thoughts, things that we want, things that we really want to aspire to, our goals, what's fantastic about our lives, being grateful, all of that stuff will start to come up into our thoughts and come out into that chatter will change to be more positive and more, more forward focusing and more, just more healthy, let's say. Yeah.
And the great thing is that there's not like there's not like loads of things that you have to do in order for this for the change to begin. You just become aware. It's really, really amazing because often we think that, there's so much to do. It sounds so scary, but actually, there is a lot to do. However, all you have to do is right now, just this moment now, becoming aware, taking responsibility for just this now, and then the next now, and the next now, and then slowly what you'll find is that you're doing it for longer, and that you're going to be guided, and your intuition is going to grow, and you'll find teachers like Bob Proctor and Eckhart Tolle, and when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and you will put one foot in front of the other, but just get started really, and it's not as big and scary as you think. It's just being in this present moment now, becoming aware of your breath. I mean, your breath is a really, really great and easy way to do it because it's something that we've got with us all the time. We can always turn to our breath no matter what's happening. So yeah, the breath is a really, really, really excellent and really super easy tool to use. And definitely, I think a breathwork episode is definitely necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. So how far have we got? Why do I think we kind of covered why we need to be aware. We kind of covered all the questions, I think, there.
Yeah, I think so. I think if people are struggling with this mental
Absolutely.
chatter, hopefully
Yes.
we've given them some tools. The floor is open in terms of people in the community. If you have any experience that you'd like to share or any questions
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
around this topic, we'd be happy to hear those. I think in terms of any further advice, I think it is number one, becoming aware of it, and from there, you know, build on some of the tools that we mentioned.
And if you'd like us to expand, actually, because even though it's a small topic, it's actually a really big topic. So if we want to break it down some more, and if you want to talk about it in more detail, and maybe even just step by step, do one question at a time, like what is the voice in the head? We can do a whole episode in just what it is, and whatever you like. So do communicate with us and let us know on our Patreon page and ask your questions. And we really look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to like and don't
A-
forget to subscribe. Please do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Zainab. See you next time. Bye bye.